Hello everyone and welcome back to AutomaTitan Cracks One Out. Last time we looked at a game that brutally murders the player, so today we're going to continue the theme and look at the first game in a franchise that got brutally murdered when the devs behind it were consumed and assimilated by the vast predatory cannibalistic monstrosity that is EA. No, not that one. That's a story for another day. Today, it's the turn of Visceral Games, and the first game in a franchise that was inspired by the absolute best that the sci-fi horror genre has to offer. From Alien to Event Horizon, from John W. Campbell to H.P. Lovecraft. Yes, today we're cracking one out with Dead Space. So, let's take a look at the shambling, horrifying corruption of the flesh and the franchise they killed when they devoured Visceral Games. For starters, let's have a look at the story. You play a bloke by the name of Isaac Clarke, a man with a pathological hatred of storage boxes, who signs up on a mission to answer a distress call from the USG Ishimura, a Planet Cracker class ship that's run into a spot of bother in orbit around Aegis 7, although the real reason he signed up is because that's the ship his girlfriend Nicole was on, and he wants to find out what happened to her. So off he popped on the USG Kellyan, along with Zack and his security team and computer expert Kendra. Unfortunately for our Space Screaming gang, they don't arrive at the Ishimura. Or rather, they do, but it's been rechristened as Destination Utterly Gutter Fuck Beyond Redemption. And to make things worse for poor Isaac, the pussy he travelled light years to save her is dead. You're right, sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. Anyway, plot. We very quickly find out why the Ishimura sent that distress call, where the crew went, what the hell went down on Aegis 7, and why there's mints all over the walls. You see, the dead walk the corridors of the Ishimura. But these aren't the happy fun time zombies of Dead Rising. No siree. Zombies are a walk in the park compared to what hell has been unleashed on the Planet Cracker. That's because these are necromorphs. It's one thing for an undead monstrosity to shamble slowly towards you while moaning about how peckish it is, but it's quite another for that undead bastard to grow blade arms and come running at you going, "War!" Now, you may be wondering why I'm talking about enemies in the plot section of the video, but the thing is, there's a really fascinating story going on in the background to explain the necromorphs, their life cycle, and just generally what the fuck is going on. The narrative doesn't just involve the necromorphs, you see. It also involves a cult of mad bastards who worship those walking avatars of body horror. They're called unitologists, and their religion centres around the markers, alien artefacts that either stop necromorphs or create necromorphs, depending on which day of the week it is. Yeah, we need to look at the later games in the franchise to figure this one out. In Dead Space 1, the marker wanted to go back to its pedestal on Aegis 7, so it could create an area where the necromorphs would kind of switch off, and it called that area a Dead Space. Meanwhile, in Dead Space 2, the marker starts drawing all the necromorphs into it to do something. Presumably, something unpleasant. So basically, it's completely different to the marker in Dead Space 1. To reconcile it, we have to invoke headcanon. Fortunately, there's enough evidence in the first game to support this particular bit of fan wank, so it's become the standard explanation for the disparity between the narratives in the first two games. Basically, the entire point of the markers is to create necromorphs, and once there's enough biomass, trigger a convergence event that sucks all the fleshy monsters in and uses them to create a necromorph the size of a fucking planet. And so, we come to the true antagonists of the series, the Brethren Moons, vast eldritch nightmares beyond the realm of human understanding that exist to kill, consume and corrupt all life. So, why was the marker in the first game trying to get back to its pedestal and stop the necromorph plague?
But I have a mission to complete, and that's exactly what I am going to do, with or without you. Do you understand?
Well, yes, it's probably that, but the headcanon answer is nicely elegant, so we're going with that. Ready? It's because the marker in the first game lied. It didn't want to stop the plague at all. It wanted to get back to the massive pile of biomass on Aegis 7 so it could trigger a convergence event and create a new monster planet. When you think about it, that makes the marker using the vision of your dead girlfriend even more insidious. Anyway, back to the mad bastard unitologists and their mouthpiece in the first game, Dr. Chalice Mercer. As the name suggests, they want to unify mankind, which is noble and everything until you realise that the religion was influenced by an ancient marker on Earth right since its inception. So in effect, when they talk about unity, what they actually mean is turning everyone into a necromorph so they can be harvested to form a new Brethren Moon. It's not quite what the Bible says the rapture would be like, but it's close. I think we're reaching the point where we'd best move on from the story and actually talk about the game, since, you know, it's a game. But there's one last thing I want to say about the narrative, and it ties in with the issue of EA consuming visceral games, because, in a bizarre twist of fate, for the first time in recorded history, the tragedy of EA gutting a studio actually made the franchise's ultimate ending better. You see, we'll learn about the Brethren Moons in Dead Space 3, and the base game ends with Isaac and his new co-op buddy trapped on the ice world of Tau Volantis, after taking down the Brethren Moon there. So amazingly, for a horror franchise, we seem to go out on a high. Yeah, don't you believe it? Because just after that, we got the true end of the story in the Awakened DLC. Now, let's gloss over the fact that EA sold us the real ending in a fucking DLC and see what actually happens.
Carver. Hey, Carver. We're almost there.
Oh, we made it?
Yeah.
Please.
D-shocking to Earth space in 3, 2, 1.
Earth Orbital Control, this is Isaac Clarke aboard the CMS Terra Nova requesting clearance, over.
Are you sure you got the right channel? This is over 200 years old.
Yeah, no, I changed it over, right? Trust me, it's right.
Earth Gov Command. This is Sergeant John Carver. Do you read me? Is anyone there?
It's weird. United Mining Traffic Flow, do you copy? Lunar Flight Control, this is CMS Terra Nova. Does anyone read us out here?
With the murder of Visceral, that is the canon ending of the Dead Space story. After all of our struggles and all of the trials we fought our way through, we end up fucked anyway. The interesting thing is that when you think about it, this actually mirrors the ending of another space-based EA franchise, but there's a really crucial difference between the two. The ending on Mass Effect 3 was a betrayal of every ideal the series embodied up to that point, but Dead Space? Yeah, that ending is really the only one that makes sense. We're not in a universe where we can win against the ultimate doom. We're in a universe that would make H.P. Lovecraft put his pen down and go to therapy, where vast, fleshy, moon-sized abominations have given us the answer to the Fermi paradox. We haven't found other life out in the galaxy because there's none left. Ultimately, the name Dead Space isn't referring to the field around the marker. Instead, it's what the Brethren Moons have turned the entire galaxy into. And now, it's our turn for extinction. And so, hope is a lie. None of our achievements or history matter, because all that waits for us is death in the mouths of monsters. All we are, all we will ever be, is food. Well, that was depressing. After that, you're probably wondering what the point of playing Dead Space is, when it's all ultimately pointless anyway. Well, the point is this: no matter how depressing the ultimate story ends up being, killing necromorphs is really fucking satisfying. Especially, and I know I'll sound like a sociopath saying this, but especially when you get to pump those demon babies. It's also going to get the blood pumping by being genuinely scary. Seriously, just ask Subtitle Guy. Part of that feeling comes from the controls, which are probably best described as the halfway point between a third-person shooter and the tank controls of older survival horror games like Resident Evil. As a result, you're constantly on the back foot, facing off against hordes of monsters that are way more agile than you, so the most likely outcome is you getting turned into chunky salsa. No, in older games, those clunky controls were basically a necessity, but here they're used deliberately, in conjunction with a handful of other mechanics, to really fuck with the player's head. You see, in the Dark Souls video, we talked about its gameplay loop, and we mentioned how that's basically what every game with combat does, including Dead Space. And that's true, but there's something else going on in Dead Space's gameplay loop. It's not just training you to play the game better, it's also actively fucking with your head, using the mechanics to enhance the horror. Back at the start, I said that Isaac was a man with a pathological hatred of storage boxes, and the thing is, that wasn't just a throwaway joke about stomping on literally everything to get the loot inside, because, as you progress through the story, you eventually start seeing these flappy little shits appear. They're called infectors, and what they do is pump their bile into corpses, turning them into yet more necromorphs, which will then proceed to eat your face. Except, they'll only bring new necromorphs if those corpses still have their limbs attached, and you have a dedicated stomp button. Yeah, it's not going to be long before you start desecrating and mutilating every single corpse you see, just in case Flappy Bird rocks up. So it's not just a case of die, learn, evolve. It's more like die, learn, go completely fucking psycho at the same time Isaac does. Again, just ask Subtitle Guy.
Kick the baby.
Basically, Dead Space is not a game that's even remotely scared to fuck with you as you play it, and subvert what you expect from the genre, even down to, well, the necromorphs are technically undead, so you need to shoot them in the head, right? Well, you could do that, but all you'll do is make them mad. Dead Space has a refreshing take on the old kill the hideous thing formula, in that most of the guns you use aren't guns at all. Instead, they are modified tools, like the plasma cutter or the line gun, or what can only be described as a floating buzzsaw, and that's because the horrors you fight aren't like other horrors out there. In a neat twist, the only way to kill them is to dismember them limb by limb, which is ridiculously symbolic, by the way, since the necromorph's goal is unity and convergence. The game sets that basic formula up from the very first encounter, but then it does its very best to subvert it. You see, the necromorph infestation is this constantly evolving thing, and while some variants exist for a specific purpose, like the wheezers that are there to make the atmosphere toxic, in terms of gameplay, that allows Dead Space to use a particular enemy just long enough for you to get used to fighting it, before throwing in another type that will royally fuck your day up if you try to use the same tactics. You've got the infectors we spoke about before. You've got the fat women who burst and shower you with the tiny bitey squid bastards if you shoot them in the wrong places. You've got the brutes who have evolved armour and are only vulnerable from the back. You've got the lanky fuckers whose limbs fall off and attack you on their own. And then there's that monster. We have to. Yes, it's the ultimate fuck you in the game. Anyone who's played the game knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's big, it's angry, and it's proof positive that religion makes everything worse. Yes, it's that bastard that made everyone's lives miserable. The fucking hunter. I mean, come on. The normal necromorphs are bad enough, but only a complete bastard would train us to relax after we've lopped off a monster's limbs, only to then introduce a beastie whose limbs grow back, thus making it functionally immortal. See? No matter how bad a necrotic plague from beyond the realms of understanding is, you can always rely on a human to turn up, yell, "Hold my holy sacrament!" and make the fucking thing worse. Right, since Subtitle Guy's gone off to whimper in a corner, I think it's conclusion time. Dead Space is quite simply a masterpiece. Not only is it a peerless survival horror game with mechanics that really rather brilliantly fuck with your head while playing, but it's also a remarkably well-told cosmic horror story that, thanks to EA's meddling, actually managed to have an ending, unlike so many game franchises these days. Sure, it wasn't what you'd call a happy ending, what with humanity being consumed and the evil moons quite possibly being the only entities left in existence in the entire universe, but really, that's the only realistic ending a cosmic horror story like this could have. It's just a shame that it happened because of EA being astronomical arseholes, and it's a fucking travesty that the ending itself was only available as paid DLC. EA, the sooner you go out of business, the better the gaming industry will be. However, that only applies to Dead Space 3, and the first game still stands up as an absolute stone cold classic. Plus, it's self-contained enough that if you don't want to experience that ending, or if you're like Subtitle Guy and refuse to install Origin, you can enjoy the original on its own. And so, our rating for Dead Space is... Mawafu dead, Moon Eaters now, all life gone, we're all fucked. And on that soul-destroying cosmic horror, it's time to end. Thanks very much for watching. I am AutomaTitan, and remember... What? I'm not reading something written on an opened up bog roll tube. Fine. Anything for a quiet life. Thanks very much for watching. I am AutomaTitan, and remember, when you're watching a video about a game whose level names famously spell out a secret message, you should totally go back and watch it again, and this time pay sonic attention to the first letter of each subtitle. title. You're fired.